Good evening, all, and welcome to the Bobby Moore Stand. International break week, so we thought we'd think of something a little bit different, something we can get our teeth into. And I attended a West Ham night the other night down in Hornchurch somewhere, and there were a few things that came up during that meeting, and it all goes back to, I'll explain why later, you know, this question, it ain't a question for me, frankly, but it seems to be a question out there in the West Ham fan, the West Ham fan community, of certain people getting uptight about certain things, and I'm just going to go through them. Anyway, first of all, good evening, Chris.
Evening, mate. How you doing? Good weekend?
Yeah, well, so far, yeah, only halfway through, and I've got Monday off, so a third of the way through.
Do you actually ever work, or are you always at home?
Well, I go back Tuesday, and then it's full on. I don't think I've got another holiday until next January, so I'm screwed, right? So yeah, unfortunately, I do have to get some work done next week, but I have actually done quite a lot this week, including went to my son Rossi's 30th birthday last night, which was really good. Makes me feel quite old having a son that's 30.
Happy 30th.
Yeah, happy 30th, Ross. Yeah, that was brilliant, actually. That was really good. And that's where we go. That was in Hornchurch as well. I'm a Hornchurch regular at the moment. That's what I am. And then yesterday I wasted an entire day trying to get that bloody neon sign fixed because I took it back. They repaired it. The blue was working again. And he said to me, I promise you, if it goes wrong again, we'll just build you a new one. Got it back, turned it on. 15 minutes later, the blue stopped working again. I was fuming, absolutely fuming. So he said, use it on white for a while we build you a new one. Anyway, enough about money on sign. Good evening, everybody in the chat. I think we've got an interesting show lined up for you tonight. By the way, if you're a fan of the audio podcasts or of audio podcasts like I am, you can use Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever. Every single show that we put on this channel magically becomes an audio podcast a little while later. Sometimes immediately, sometimes after a couple of hours, depending on how lazy I am, right? It's all manual at the moment. We're on 5,420 subscribers, I think. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the channel. We're pushing for 6,000. Not far to go now. Please give this video a like as well and hit the bell notification icon after you subscribe. So the main premise of this show today is, have we made a huge mistake with Julian Lopetegui and the new regime? You probably know my answer on that, but I want to know other people's answers as well. Now, before we discuss that, and it's going to be quite an in-depth discussion, and I have slides, right? Before we discuss that, I've put a poll in the community section of the channel. So you can either go to www.thebobbymorestand.com on any browser, hit the community tab, and then you'll see the poll. Or if you know where the channel's homepage is, again, community tab, go to the poll, make your vote. I think you can vote now and you can vote later, because for those of you that are feeling a little bit negative, I'm hoping with the aid of evidence to change your mind a little bit. Might work, might not. Worth a try, innit? Worth a try. But yeah, I'm going to first of all go through the news. I've got quite a bit of news, and then we'll get on with that afterwards. But while I'm going through the news, yeah, pop across to the community section. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe while you're there, and see what I did there. And yeah, we'll take it from there. So Chris, first of all, let's go through the news. Let's cover what's happened over the last few days. I mean, firstly, we're being linked very heavily with Mr. Egan, the former Sheffield United captain. Tough tackling bloke, apparently. Him and the other guy, Joel Matip, who is a Champions League winner, another Champions League winner. We collect him from Liverpool, somebody who Jurgen Klopp once described as outstanding. He's quite a good judge of a defender, don't you think? What do you reckon on these two defenders, Chris? I think it seems like Egan's quite likely. He played for us against Dagenham and Redbridge the other night in a behind closed doors friendly. We won 5-0, courtesy of a Danny Ings hat-trick. Rare, isn't it? But frankly, at the moment, we've got three senior centre-halves. And when I say senior, I do mean senior. I mean, fully grown area-ass men. What do you think about these two links, Chris?
I think I've got differing opinions on both of those players, because Egan, for me, I just don't see the point, in truth. I really, really don't. I think from what I read the other day, he did play in that friendly against Dagenham, but I think he played about 60 minutes. I don't think he was particularly.
It was only 60 minutes long.
Oh, was it? Okay, well,
Yeah.
in that case, he played the whole game. But yeah, from what I understand, he wasn't, particularly overwhelmingly good. He was just pretty average, right? So for me, I don't really get it. I don't really get it. On the other side, with Matip, that for me is probably a no-brainer, dependent upon what his expectations are coming into the club. Because if he wants to come in and expect to be first choice, then that might be a little bit hard to do. But having said that, if he's doing outstandingly well and he dislodges one of the two that we've got, one of the three first choice centre backs that we've got, then why not? It's good to have that competition. And don't forget, with Matip, he was playing quite frequently for Liverpool last season. He played in the game that I went to, the 5-1 thrashing up at Anfield, and he was quality that night. Not that he particularly needed to be, but he was good. So I still think there's a lot of legs in him left. I do think there's still some, I'd still say he's got a good maybe season or two left in him.
I think so too. I've got the same view as that actually. I don't know why we're going to Egan other than he's got 2 arms and 2 legs and he can play in as a centre half. He would surely be the 5th choice centre half if we got both of them, right? So he's never going to get a kick. It'd be like the 3rd choice goalkeeper Fodringham that we've signed. Never going to touch a ball, is he? Right, in anger. So, but Matip. He's had a bad injury and everything, but he's still a very, this ain't Zuma style injury, right? His knees are not knackered. I'm sure he'd have a decent little check over before we signed him. I don't think we're making the same mistake as we did with Zuma. Don't forget, we signed Zuma and his knees were knackered, right?
Yeah.
So if he's over this, then it's different. I want to come on to it. There's a lot of comments in the chat about Casey, and I'm going to cover that in quite a lot of depth. Because again, from what I heard the other night when I went to this event, Kenny Brown was talking as well, and I've spoken to quite a few other people. So I've got a view on the youth, and also in speaking with someone else in the last couple of days of what's actually happening with Callum Casey. I won't go into too much detail, but I'll just touch on it, right? Because that is a narrative that's appeared over the last couple of days. Is that one of the criticisms of is just the same as Moyes. One of the arguments is, oh, youth are still not getting a go, right? So, going to address that. But anyway, let's come back to that. So that was the two. I think we're sort of aligned on who we'd like there. I don't see the point in Egan myself, but again, if Egan's there just as like arms and legs for a season, fine. But Matip is like a 2-year commitment.
I mean, is that, sorry to interject there, but how likely is this Egan thing? Because I know there's been a lot of noise about it recently.
Well, it wouldn't have been. It won't be unlikely because we've played him in a friendly. We're obviously wanting to see how good he was. I suppose it depends how he came out of that friendly, doesn't it? Really?
I'm just not a fan of it. I'm really not. And going back to the Casey point, I know we're going to address that, but for me, why could he not be a 4th choice defender? I'm not saying he's ready at the moment.
Again, I'll try and explain why, but bear in mind, number 1 will be Kilman, number 2 will be Tadibo, number 3 will be Mavropanos or Matip if he comes in. Number 4 might be Mavropanos. So Egan would only be a 5th choice anyway.
Yeah. Well, exactly that. And so, would there be any reason to bring in Matip and Egan? No, surely just one or the other.
I wouldn't want to bring in Egan if he's playing 4th choice. I wouldn't want to risk actually using him.
Yeah.
And if we can get him, as a fully grown, quite tough tackling defender, apparently, quite a bit of a rogue. If we can get him as someone that we can bring on the bench, off the bench to help bolster the defence when we're trying to hold on to a game or something like that, he's a bit filth. I'd be all right with that. But as long as we don't pay too much money for him, and it's only for 1 season, maybe even half a season, maybe until the winter transfer window. Who knows?
A lot of people are saying he could be there Dawson as well.
As Leo in the chat says, Gunn, you're in charge of the chat tonight, so go ahead, put some comments up. It doesn't distract me. Just put up what you want, right? Evening, Virgil, by the way. Good to see you in here. Jamie, it's rare as a centre-back. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. So not many were fans of Dalton. This is absolutely right from Nigel. Not many were fans of Dawson. I wasn't. I thought, what's the bloody point in this? That was one of the most inspired signings we've ever made. He was brilliant. And talk about cult hero. It's like, he just epitomised the cult hero. The problem with him is he's a bit of a strange bloke, Dawson. He doesn't even like the love of the cult hero, right? He don't want to be loved. He when he played against us before, he was sulking like a good one when we beat him, wasn't he? He's just like, come and show us some love, Craig. He just ain't got it in.
Let's be honest though, Gail. I mean, is Egan really going to be another Dawson? I mean, those types of signings are few and far between. They're very rare when you sign someone like that. It just happens to suddenly emerge into like a cult hero, right? Like Dawson did. I don't see this, and I don't want to be too pessimistic here, but I don't see, Egan doing the same as what Dawson did. But I think, John's made a very valid point there. Obviously, Casey isn't physically at that level yet, right? He's probably not.
No,
but again, if he's fourth or fifth choice and he's there as a backup, why not?
And
that's my argument.
And that is the point. Let me just address it now rather than wait until later, right? Casey, I saw him last year and I was really impressed away to Wycombe. But one thing you noticed when our youth team ran out against Wycombe is the difference in size between those boys and the fully grown men they were playing against, because they looked huge compared to our boys. And I thought, fucking hell, we're going to get bashed up here. And they did their best and they only just got beat. In fact, they nearly got a draw at the end. It was an astounding result. Once they got the ball on the floor and started playing around them, it was great. But when it was a physical battle, which it was in the beginning, they struggled. And the one that didn't struggle was Casey. Casey was really, really good under pressure. He looked really comfortable on the floor, by far better than that Brazilian kid that we just got rid of, who was a couple of years older and cost money. But he was skinny, Casey. And Casey, they know he's a talent. That's why he ain't gone out on loan yet, right? That he's got a new deal. So as I think Earthy and Skulls, I think, isn't it? 3 of them have signed new deals. All on the same amount. Very good money, very lucrative. They're all happy. They're not struggling to get into the first team. They're actually they're part of a plan. They've got a plan to get into the first team. And you would think that part of that plan would be for Casey to build himself up so that he's ready to be a Premier League centre-back. And that is, I think Russie B said this the other day, I think that's the story. That's why Egan at the moment, he is a bruiser. He's one that's actually done it before. He weren't a bad player, as Leo said earlier in the chat. He weren't bad before his injury, right? This ain't a mug, but he's someone that, because of the injury, might not last very long, yeah? So he's an uninspiring signing, but he is not blocking the way from Casey to get through to the first team. Let me just be clear on that. And that is something that Kenny Brown, who's really, if you don't know what Kenny Brown Jr. does, he's one of the leading lights in the youth academy, and he spoke at length the other night. Nigel was there as well. Nigel was one of the organisers, about what was going on, and he was talking about the there's a couple of kids that we lost, to a couple of promising kids that we lost. One got picked up by Man City and one by Arsenal, and it was our mistake, right? It was our mistake, because you've got to sign these kids up by a certain cut-off date, otherwise they can just walk away and another club can come in and get them. Arsenal and City did it to us. We did it to Chelsea. We nicked one of their best youth team strikers, who's now bashing goals in for us. He lives in Chigwell, right? But what the point I'm getting at, what's his name again, Chris? You said it the other day. What's his name? I've got it written down here somewhere.
Oh, crap.
Yeah, but anyway, that'll come to me in a minute. Yeah, look it up, see if you can find it. But the point was, somebody asked a question about this kid, because he's like all kids that start starring and bashing in goals, all the players, all the stars we've had in recent years, they say, oh, he's close to the first team. He's close to the first team, right? And somebody asked Kenny Brown, they said outright, they said, how close is this kid to the first team? And bearing in mind, he's bashing goals in left, right, and centre.
How old is he now?
17.
17.
Kenny Brown turned around and said, he's 17. He's a great talent, but he's miles away from the first team if he carries on working and carries on developing. But that's what I'm saying. Sometimes we get a little bit excited and we don't realise how young a lot of those youth team players were last year. The fact that they were doing so well against League Two opposition and stuff like that, it's neither in nor there. They were still young, and it's still a massive leap. Like Potsy did. He went League One, and then he's gone Championship. He's gone straight into the Championship. I think if they excel in the Championship, then I think they're on the verge. They're on the cusp of being given a chance in the Premier League. I think that's the route now. That is the route. Yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, I love that. I love what Potsy's doing. I think that's exactly what our youth team players should be doing if they're going out on loan. Is progression, steady progression. But the guy is called Josh Ajala.
That's
so he's the guy we're referring to.
Yeah. So it was Again, all teams make this mistake, and he said as well, we made a mistake. Hands up, we let these two players go. We shouldn't have happened. And he spoke to the coach at Chelsea, and they basically said the same thing. They said, "Look, our fault. We thought we'd just sign for Chelsea." But it turns out the kid lives in Chigwell with his mum and dad, and it sounded like it didn't take much convincing to get him to sign for West Ham, right? So brilliant. Don't have to travel down to Chelsea anymore, right? Or wherever it is.
I didn't know this. I didn't watch the. Sorry to just completely go off on a tangent here. I didn't watch the England game tonight. But 8 minutes, I think, came on the 84th minute from us. So I looked at the stats.
We're going to talk a lot about Jared Bowen after. We're going to talk a lot about Jared Bowen after, because this is on the striker topic, where people are saying, why didn't we push the boat out and pay what they wanted for Duran? Well, I think it makes for interesting stats. I'm going to show you some stats after, where we pull all the 4 strikers that we've got, including Ings, sadly, and Duran, and we look at last year's metrics. And it amazed me, actually. I don't think Antonio's ever had a set of metrics like this. Bowen is a striker in all but name. You just got to look at these metrics and what he does, right? It's different. I know he started on the wing and everything else, but he's an instinctive finisher, right? Whether you like it or not. Just a couple of bits of news before we move on to that debate topic, right? So carry on with some comments, Chris, in a second. So we covered the friendly already. International duty, Paqueta lit it up for Brazil, setting up Rodrigo of Real Madrid for the winner as they beat Ecuador 1-0 in a qualifier. Antonio flopped, apparently, 0-0 draw for Jamaica against Cuba. Kudus played 90 minutes and impressed. Apparently playing in number 10 against Angola, but they lost 1-0. I think they've got a poor team at the moment, Ghana. They're bottom of the group. Callum Marshall with his 2 goals. This is the benefit of a loan. You're listening? Callum Marshall went to Huddersfield. He's played 5 games, scored 2, so he's flying. He got picked to play internationally for Northern Ireland. He played 57 minutes for Northern Ireland in an international, competitive international against Luxembourg. Now he's travelling with a team to Bulgaria to play the next game. That is like amazing. I mean, if that player develops and and kind of gets to the point where we believe he could, all that work's been done for us in the background. We ain't got to get involved, right?
He just needs the minutes, doesn't he? That's the thing. When he went on loan last season, he didn't get that when he was at West Brom. But I think, he scored on his debut as well. I think Marshall, didn't he? I'm sure he did.
Yeah, that was a balls up sending him to West Brom. I mean, Potsy and King told me that. They said it was a balls up. I won't say who was to blame for it, but it wasn't West Ham. Put it like that. West Ham are very careful about which loans they select for each person. So Gideon Kadua, I erroneously thought they'd terminated his loan at Wickham. He's doing brilliantly at Wickham. Came on the other day, did really well. Yeah. Potsy has actually signed for Portsmouth. So he's gone from League One to Championship. Hopefully he'll do brilliantly in the Championship as well. Player of the year and all that. And he also got to the EFL final as well. Again, all this experience they're gathering, rather than just accumulating dust in our reserves and sitting on the bench every game, right? So it's all. What's Andy Walsh say about Marshall there? He was lively.
Very lively at the Wickham away game. I'm just putting some up.
Yeah. So sorry, this is a new dynamic for me and Chris. Chris might look a bit confused. It's his first go at the comments. Now he's starting to realise how much pain I have to go through in doing this. Right?
It's great fun. It's great fun.
Yeah, sure.
Some of the comments, I'm reading them all here, and I saw what you aimed at me. Thank you for that.
I fucking hate doing the comments. I really hate doing the comments. Right, I'd rather talk. Right. So I think with the loans, it's all about progression, isn't it? It's all about progression. Yeah. So again, before we start the debate and we talk about the various aspects, the first bit is just like a presentation. Bear with me, you'll like it. But my view on this is quite clear before I start. I'm fully behind Lopetegui. We're only 4 games in. I think it's far too early to say to make a judgment one way or the other. Some people often say, a lot of people said, oh, where's the jury still out option? Well, there ain't one. I want to know how you feel now after 4 games. You must have a point of view. Happy, satisfied, unhappy. It's all in there, right? Jury's still out ain't an option. I did that deliberately because everyone would choose it, right? Everyone would choose it. Of course, the jury's still out. The jury's going to still be out until, I don't know, Christmas or something like that, right? For most fair-minded people.
The jury's still out, right? But still, for some people, it's not. And that's the funny thing about it, because it's so early into the season. It's amazing that people are making this kind of judgment on them already. Crazy.
That is it. That is really interesting, right? Because again, I've opened this poll to everybody, so you're going to get some loons going there, obviously, right? But at the moment, we've got 5 options. Lopetegui was the right choice and has done really well. That means happy, 18%. Lopetegui has met the minimum requirement expected, and you are satisfied, 74%. I knew that was going to be the most popular. So combined, that's like 92%. It's pretty good, right? You know, Lopetegui has underachieved, not happy, 5%. Lopetegui is a total failure, and I'm totally dissatisfied, 1%. Lopetegui is just David Moyes rebadged. Angry, in brackets, always angry, right? 3% of the voters are angry voters, right? Well, it's what it is. So anyway, look, I just wanted to, that is quite an emotive thing. I don't really care what people voted. I think you can change your vote afterwards. The idea of this is, even if you voted that you're really angry and you dislike it, watch what we've got to say, right? See if I can change your mind. See if Chris can change your mind. Let's see. But going into it, there's probably 2 topics. There's 2 topics that keep getting brought up time and time again. First of all, the transfer window. Some people say the transfer window has been a miserable failure. And I'm going to go into that. I'm going to go into the reasons why they say that. But firstly, let me just put up a couple of slides, and I want you to judge. I want you to tell me afterwards in the chat if you think this has been anything other than a storming success, this transfer window. Because I can't see past that. Right, so let's do this. And we're going to start with, this will be very quick and snappy. Right, so stay awake. Hang on. It ain't going to be death by PowerPoint, I assure you. Right, share screen. I hate death by PowerPoint, you know it. Right, okay. So this is the first slide. Hope you can all see that. I've made it as kind of screen friendly as I possibly could. This is the team that David Moyes left behind, and there is a color code. There's a key down the left hand side, right? So the ones that were exiting were Kara, Benny, Fornals, Went, Downs. The first team at the time, we probably had the ones in blue were probably what we'd call acceptable first team players. The ones in white, maybe a lot of the fans would have considered to be backup players, because I'll give you Soufal as a great example. He didn't have a good season. A lot of us were saying we need a new right back, right? So I wouldn't call him he was a first choice in the first team, but I weren't happy with him, and a lot of people weren't either. And the ones in yellow, they were like low use or not fit for use. So Phillips, not fit for use. Low use Johnson. Zuma should not have been used. His knees were knackered. Ogbonna wasn't there. Agwerd was a liability. The Cornet was never there. Ings, just never got used, did he? So I think I've been as fair as I can on that. So that's what he left behind. Now, pay attention, right? These are the ones with the crosses over them that we flushed out, right? These are the ones that we removed from that original thing. And it left this. This is what Tim and Loppy began with. It's what they started with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 first team ready players, including 1 goalkeeper.
And you know, right?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 what I'd consider backup players, plus Danny Ings, who we tried to sell.
Yeah. And the most amazing thing about this, right? And I don't know if anyone in the chat has seen this, but there was an interview quite recently with Kevin Nolan and Big Sam. And Nolan was asked and also Big Sam was asked where they thought we would finish this season. I think their take was something like 9th or 10th, right? But what Nolan did say was that he felt that with the team that they'd left behind, we should definitely be challenging. But then how can you really say that when you look at how many players realistically we can use this season that were there last season, and how many we've let go? It's complete nonsense. This is the thing. And obviously you're going to provide more context about what we've done here, but that's quite startling, that statistic. I mean, it really is when you look at what we have, or what we had, shall I say, what they left by.
I didn't expect it to look like this when I drew it on a pitch. I really didn't. So let's go back, right? This is what he left us. This is what we removed. This is what we were left with. That is what Tim and Loppy had to build from. 6 first team players, 6 backups, and Danny Ings. Right? Now, since then, this is what they've done. They've bought in all the ones in purple. They've loaned out to some very good loans as well, because Ward-Prowse, pointless selling him. You might as well get him on loan and get a decent price for him. Same for Agüed, same for Cornet, right? They'll go, but they're on loan at the moment. The other kids, they've all gone to, or the kids have gone to good loans, all of them, right? Good progressive loans. And so this means that we've got, you know, what, seven players on loan. I know there are more. I include everybody, right? We've got 10 or 11 new players. If we sign Egan and Matip, it will be 9, 10 or 11, right? If you get me. The backup players, you know, we've got backup players in a lot of positions already, and low use players. That leaves us with Irving and Ings. Now, if I go for the final picture, right? This is the new squad. Now, today, this is the new squad. If we sign Egan and Matip, all the ones in blue are usable in the first team. All the ones in white are backups for the first team, usable backups. The ones in yellow, we don't think we're going to get much use out of. So there's Guilherme, Ings, Irving, and Wes Foderingham. You know, Wes Foderingham bought for a reason, be a third choice keeper. Guilherme might come a bit good towards the second half. Who knows? He's probably a next season player, though. Ings, yeah, not going to play very much. And Irving, yeah, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with Irving? But if you look at that, if you look at how many first team backup players we've got, and hold that in your mind for a minute, because I want you to compare it with what we started with. What he left us, what we've got now. What he left us, what we've got now. Who we signed. I mean, how anyone can say that this is not a fantastic, mind-blowing window that's restarted the club, because if they didn't get this right, you bear in mind, you go back to this, Paqueta, of all these players, Paqueta's the superstar, could have just lost him. He could have been banned forever. We might have ended up with 5. We've literally started from scratch here, and they've delivered a team that is actually looking pretty good. It ain't perfect. We haven't got the fast striker up front that we wanted, but blimey, I'd have to give it, honestly, when I looked at it like this on paper, I'd have to give it a 9 out of 10. I'm not giving it a, you know, I'm not saying it's crap because we didn't sign a striker, or we should have put all the money into Duran, or, you know, this sort of crap. There are reasons for that. PSR is a big reason, right? PSR is not an excuse, it's a reason. It can lose your points. And we've spent net to build this squad 99 million euros. That is just outstanding. That is proper dealing. That is, you know, forget Harry Redknapp. This is proper wheelie dealing for quality, right? Look at the quality we've got in there now. Soler, Guido, Alvarez, Paqueta, Bowen, Fulkrug, Jimmy, Kudus, Todibo, Wan-Bissaka, Kilman, Emerson, Areola. I mean, and look at the backups. Look at the backups that we've potentially got. Dinos, great backup. Matip, potentially. Sufa's good backup. Cresswell is as well. Fabianski is. Souček could be all right. It'd be a come of use. Antonio would be a good backup from the bench as well. Things won't. But if you look at that, it's chalk and cheese. They have rebuilt this entire squad and given us a Premier League team, a Premier League ready team that is ready to compete. I mean, you know, if we had 1 or 2 in January, now we've shifted some people out. How can anyone say this is not a 9 out of 10? Tell me what you think in the comments. Chris, what do you rate it?
Do you know, so this is the thing, right? So when you compare, obviously, from the last slide that you shared with regards to what was left over by Moyes and what we now have, you know, again, hypothetically, if we bring in one of, or even both, Egan and Matip.
Can I just say, this team is getting relegated, right? If they don't sort this out, what he left us is getting relegated with bells on. Now we've got a team that can push for Europe.
If you look at what he left us, okay, Moyes left at the right time, and I don't want to talk too much about Moyes, but you also question this, right? If Moyes did stay on, what kind of quality of player could be brought back in to replace what's left? Okay, we have held on to the likes of Kudus. It's debatable, right? But anyway, go back to the question that you said. Okay, what do I think about this? The first thing that I think is that it frustrates the hell out of me when people moan about, oh, you know what, it's not been a great start. You know, these players, you know, certain players aren't doing particularly well when they're digging out Fulkrug and certain other players. This is a whole new squad of players, right? We need to kind of gain some, you know, kind of perspective on this.
Yeah,
that is a whole new squad of players. So how can we expect them to hit the ground running from day one? Because that is a huge turnover of players. It's a brand new squad. So this is the thing, and I've said this so many times, it is about patience. We're 4 games in. We can start judging after, I don't know, 10, 15 games. Then we'll get more of a grasp on how well this is gelling and how good these players are. But it's too early. It's as simple as that.
4 games in, and we've won 2 of them. And one of the ones we lost was Manchester City. No,
Yeah.
hardly anyone's going to beat them, right?
And we gave a good fist of it in that game as well. We did.
Yeah, we
some really good times in that game.
Yeah. So I think it's in my nature to be patient, but I honestly think there's no reason to not be patient 4 games in. I think it's ridiculous to get carried away. So look, that is what I think and what you think about the transfer window. I think if you want to deny what you just seen, then go ahead, deny it. But yeah, I think there's a lot of people in the chat. There's anyone who's sort of backing it, but I can't think that. Is there anyone in there that thinks this has been a bad window, or we could have done better in some way?
There's a few people that are negative about some of the players, and it tends to be Fulkrug. I've seen a couple of things.
We're going to come on to him. We're going to come on to him in a minute, and all the other strikers, right?
Yeah, there's a few comments here about obviously Moisey here from Robin. If he'd stayed, we'd have probably gone back in for Maguire, McTominay. I probably agree with that. I think that may well have happened as well, actually.
Oh, it would have, and he left, didn't he, McTominay? He went somewhere else. Let me just present. So, talking about strikers, now the common perception, the common question was, it wasn't a question, it was a statement. People are getting annoyed saying, why didn't we put the house on Duran? Well, there is a few good reasons for that. Number one, he wasn't worth 40 million according to market price. We offered 35, a perfectly reasonable deal. That was the best deal by far that Villa got, probably the only offer that they got, because like it or not, he's a bit of an unstable genius, right? And I'm not saying, don't take this as me dismissing Duran, because I think he's got potential. It could be something special, but he is not something special at the moment. He isn't. He scored 2 goals this season, once against us when we were crap in the first game. He came on and ran at Soufal and the defence went AWOL. The other one's against Leicester. If you look at his other goals, he scored 7 in total in 38 appearances, 35 as sub, by the way, but 7 goals. He scored 1 against Everton in a 4-0 win when Everton were crap. He scored against Palace in a 3-1 win. He scored, 1 against City in a 4-1 defeat, 1 against us, 1 against Leicester, who just got promoted. When Liverpool were on their arse at the end of last season, we all remember that. He scored 2 in a 3-3 draw. And
that's the one that refers to, with Duran. Everyone goes back to that particular game where he really shot.
But that was right at the end of the season when Liverpool were crap, right? When you know what happened last year? Klopp should never have told people he was leaving because it just went down the toilet, right? But anyway, I'm not taking it away from him. I think he's a good player. But would you bet your house on him? And I've got a question to ask you. I'm going to ask you before, and I don't answer in the chat, just answer in your head. I'm going to ask you before, would you play him up front and drop Jared Bowen? Because I think that might be the choice, right? And I'm going to show you why you shouldn't do that. So let me just share this 1 second. Last thing I'm going to share, by the way. Right. And this is a comparison between Jared Bowen, Nicholas Fulkrug, Michail Antonio, John Duran, and Danny Ings based on what they did last season. All right. In order of the number of minutes they played, so it's not an exact science, but I'm sure you can see that there's trends there, trends that you should probably take notice of. All right. So let me just do this. Share screen window. It is this one. Now I've made this bigger and I hope you can see it. Can you see it, Chris?
I can, yeah.
Is that better? Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. Okay. So what we see here, this goes quite a lot to the right, but we'll try and just keep it in this column. I mean, look, Jared played quite a lot of minutes last season. Let's just do this. Let's go up to the top. No, we're on the top. There we are. He played 3,000 minutes. Nicholas Fulkrug played nearly 2,400 for Germany, and he scored today as well, by the way, didn't he, against Hungary for Germany. Michail Antonio played 1.7 almost. John Duran 475, and Danny Ings down the bottom with 404 minutes. They both had very similar number of substitute appearances, actually, and they had 3 starts each, Duran and Ings as well, by the way, and 23. I think these are matches played, so 23 and 20. So they had a very similar number of substitute appearances as well, right? So you can actually prepare them. You can tell he's a lot better than Danny Ings, all right? That's something I took from this straight away. That's the first thing, and that's not a surprise. Now, if you look at Jared Bowen and just look at his stats and compare him to somebody who was very successful last season he's a striker, a traditional striker. That is all he does. He doesn't take corners. He doesn't do anything. In Nicholas Fulkrug, he was very successful last year for Dortmund and for Germany. 12 goals, 8 assists, 20 in total. Jared, 16 goals, 6 assists, 22 in total. with slightly more games. Probably if you leveled the games out, Fulkrug would be slightly ahead. But he takes penalties, Fulkrug, so he scored 3 of those with penalties. They both get booked a little bit. I think when you look down here, you know, Mikel Antonio fell off a cliff last year. You know, 8 in total versus 20 and 22. Right, John Duran 5, as we know. Yeah, Danny Ings 1, no assists. Shooting is very, very good. The number of shots had 84 for Jared, 55 for Fulkrug, 30 for Antonio. You expect more from Antonio, really, don't you? But then again, he's 34 now, right? Shots on target, you know, a very high proportion. Again, I don't think there's much we can learn from John Duran on this. If you look at this one here, passing is really impressive. So Jared, lots of passing. You know, he's very active in the final third, 484. But similar number, if you consider the number of minutes, is Fulkrug. He gets very involved in the final third. Very good pass completion, similar to Jared as well. Mickey, not so much, and not so much passing either. Right, this is a player who gets actively involved. He needs to be embedded into the team, like he is with Germany, where he scores all the time. Right?
Yeah.
They need to know. They need to know what he's doing. He's not a runner, Fulkrug. He's not a guy that's going to take corners. He's not a guy that's going to go on mazy dribbles. He ain't got it in him. He plays in the middle of the pitch, and he scores goals, and he brings other players into the game. That's what he does. He barely strays out to the wing ever. Right now, you know, with Mickey, he does it by default because in his heart, he's a winger. Right. Yeah. You know, the short passing, very, very similar numbers between Jared and Fulkrug. And this is what I'm saying. Jared's stats, when I looked at this earlier, jumped out at me and saying I'm comparing him with a known striker who had a great season last year, and Jared's stats are, in most cases, as good, in other places, better. That, to me, says Jared is the pacey striker that we need, right? He's not big in stature, but my God, he done our finished chances, right? Why would we exchange him and spend 40 million quid and sit John Duran on the bench? Because look at these stats. He is not getting in the team above Jared Bowen. And if you want to put all these players in the team, someone's got to be dropped. Jared ain't being dropped. Kudus is not being dropped. So Kudus would go on the right, likely. I'm guessing Somerville comes in, goes on the left, and Jared goes up front. I reckon it's going to be between Jared and Fulkrug, with Antonio being third choice eventually. I think that's what's going to happen. You know, types of pass, you know, number of pass, again, very similar all the way through, right? Together with the outcomes. I was astounded at how similar these are, right? It's just really amazing. I thought he would have like winger's stats, which is what you get from Antonio, but he doesn't. Jared Bowen has striker stats.
The thing is, though, right? I mean, this is the devil's obviously in the detail here.
Yeah.
But how many of those goals that Bowen scored last season, and I don't know off the top of my head, were as a result of him playing on the right wing as opposed to him playing up front?
That's a good question. I don't know that. But he did play a lot of minutes up front as a striker, because you can see Mickey didn't play many minutes last year. You remember he became the main striker at one point, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, to be fair, I quite enjoyed watching him play up front last season. We didn't really have too much of a choice, let's be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the detail does, certainly paint, quite an interesting picture there. I think with Duran, what you're talking about is potential. I think, everyone's seen glimpses of what he can do. But the big question here for me, it's not necessarily even about his ability or the potential of John Duran. For me, it's more around his attitude, because if he was this amazing prospect, this huge world beater, then why would Villa be willing to let him go? Okay. I know, of course, they've got, Ollie Watkins. I get that. But if he's that good, if he's really, really that good, why would they let him go? That's the question. And why aren't there other clubs coming in for him as well? And again, I'm with you. I'm not saying he's a bad player at all. I'm not, because I do think he would be an exceptional player. I think there's a lot of talent there. But you've got to ask those questions. You've got to ask those questions. And for me, they go unanswered, right? They do.
Yeah, well, completely. And I think, when you look at what he's played this year, he's been on the bench every game. It's only a matter of time until he starts kicking off again, because he comes on from the bench, just like he did last season. He comes on from the bench and he scores a goal. Next game, Ollie Watkins is starting. That is not going to go down well with him. He's going to blow his top. And so if we had him in amongst Bowen and Fulkrug, he's not going to start ahead of Fulkrug. He might be an alternative to Fulkrug for certain games. He's not going to start ahead of Jared. So he'd find himself sitting on our bench as well. So what we're going to end up with, if we take certain people on their word, a £40 million player who is just, gone completely rogue like he did with Villa. And I think that's really dangerous. We can't afford to waste 40 millions. You've seen how much it nearly hurt us losing that money with Paqueta, right? We can't throw 40 millions down the toilet. We've done it far too often, right?
Yeah.
So look, I think this paints a different picture. Again, let us know what you. Thanks, Damien. Really appreciate that. The window's not perfect. Excellent, but not perfect. No, not perfect. You're never going to get perfect. I think a pacey striker. Maybe not Duran. That's why I was edging away from Duran a little bit, because I thought he'd cause problems for the team, even though I really wanted him. But not getting a Duran was a mistake. Duran is better than Falk. Is he? Is he? Well, that remains to be seen. He's done it over 10 minutes, as I've shown you with these stats, right? 10 minutes. He's literally played 470 odd minutes of football last season. He scored 7 goals, largely against weak or teams who are ineffective at the time. No matter how impressive they are, if you went to that Villa game, you know how crap we were defensively. He scored against us. Big deal, right? That doesn't turn him into a good striker. I'll tell you what, here's a good comparison for you. He scored against us and he scored against Leicester, the promoted side. He came on from the bench against Arsenal, never got a kick, because they've got a good defence. If you think you could have put him on against City last week and he would have gone on a solo mazy run and scored a hat-trick, he ain't going to do it, right? He ain't there yet. The one who might well have scored against City last week would have been Jared Bowen.
Yeah. I just think it's too early to draw comparisons and say, oh, so-and-so is better than the other player.
Thanks for the fiver, Bonner.
It's far too early for that. It really, really is. I say it all the time. It's about giving players time, and I think that needs to happen. It really, really does. But yeah, I think Duran is all about potential. Yes, he's shown in glimpses over the course of the last season that there's something potentially quite special there. But has he done it? We'll have to wait. Only time will tell. Only time will tell with this stuff. It really will.
Yeah. So Duran, after the Villa game, made it clear he didn't want to leave. So let him live his time out with them. He's not going to live his time out with them. He's going to kick off again. It's all going to go tits up. He's going to have another meltdown. It's a matter of time. He's a volatile character. So that's what I'm saying. When people say, oh, just spend what it takes to get him, are you serious? Because he's a volatile character. You don't know what he's going to turn into. Do you know exactly how you're going to use him? Because unless you know he's going to be a first team player and he's going to play every week, you can't be sure he's not going to flip out on you and go rogue, right? So would you risk 50 million on him, 60 million? What would you risk if Monchi, their very flashy old single name director of football, decides he wants 40 or 50 million? What, you just pay it because you fancy Duran? Is that it? Do you risk PSR?
I've already had this conversation with you offline, Gary. So I've heard from a good source that someone in the Villa camp was saying very negative things about Duran in terms of, obviously his behaviour, which isn't overly surprising. And I think it's probably fairly well documented anyway, but this is coming from a very senior player in the squad, right? Yeah. So this is the thing. When you're signing him, you're also signing his character as well. And that could be absolutely negative for our squad. So there's a lot of things you need to take into account. It's not just always about the ability of a player. It's about how they're going to settle in with that squad. And if they don't settle in and they're a bad egg, that can be absolutely catastrophic for the team as well. So you need to kind of factor this in. And I like this comment as well, right? The way we said we haven't got Duran. We need to keep remembering this. We haven't. Maybe you might get him in January, but we haven't for the moment. So do you know what?
We're going to talk about it every time he scores a goal. We're going to hear about it now.
Well, we need to stick with Duran. Fulkrug is our player. We need to back him. We need to back him. That's all we can do. We should be knocking him so soon into the season.
Yes, no, absolutely. And Fulkrug is a proven striker. And he said the other day that he's not Fulkrug himself, right? He's an honest bloke, Fulkrug. He's not pulling wool over anybody's eyes. He came out the other day and said, I'm not really happy with my performance at the moment. He said, people just have to be a little bit patient with me because this is different to Germany. It's different in 2 ways. It's faster and more physical. He said, but it's far less technical. He said he just needs a little bit of time to acclimatise and he'll be fine, right? And I think, listen, he knows he's a very, very experienced player. There's few more experience than him, and he's only 30. What is he? 30 or 31? I can't remember. But he will score goals. He will score goals. I guarantee it. He'll score goals. He doesn't need to be part of a front two. This is a guy who's all elbows. He hurts defenders physically, right? He just got to find out how to work with the team around him. Don't forget, I think did he start one game so far? I can't remember. Was it the Bournemouth game that he started?
Yeah,
but he's playing with players that just don't know him. They don't know how to supply him. He don't know how to bring them in. They don't know how to bring him in. He plays in a certain way, and he also depends on a lot of decent crosses as well. And so if there's no service, it's going to be it's like how many strikers like that we had in the past? No service, no goals, right? So let's just think of that. So anyway, look, that was as far as the debate goes. Have we made the right decision or not? This is point 1 of 2. This is argument 1 of 2. So that is about the transfer window, including the strikers. For me, I think Monchi, the director of football at Aston Villa, is a rival of Tim Steidten and wanted to rinse Tim Steidten for as much as he could. And Tim Steidten weren't having it. He weren't paying the, whatever he decided to ask for. So it's a standoff at the end of the day. But should we really just react to that and say, oh, don't worry about it. Oh, here's 40 million. It's a lot of money, We're West Ham.
And don't forget, right, going back to Füllkrug again, I don't know if this is about Füllkrug, this particular comment. There is no guarantee, but there's no guarantee with a lot of players that you could sign. But the one guarantee that you do have with Füllkrug, as opposed to Duran, is his character. We've all seen his interviews, right? He's, for me, I loved that interview that he did pre-season. I really, really did. And he's someone that I think will work hard. I don't think he's going to upset the camp. I just don't see that with a player like him. I don't. So, I'll give it time. Give it time.
Yeah. So look, again, it's up to everybody. I ain't telling everybody what to think anyway. It's up to you what you think. If you think that Füllkrug is not up to scratch, you've made your mind up already. I don't know. Personally, I don't see how you can make your mind up so quickly about a player. I can't. I always give a player and a manager a certain period of time. For God's sake, I didn't even get upset with David Moyes until, what was it, partway through last season, was it? I think it was last season. But anyway, it's one of those things. I was very, very patient for quite a long time about this, and I'm always patient with players as well because they're just humans. And when you're changing country, especially, I still don't think Schumacher was a bad player. Haller was a bad player. Anderson was a bad player. I just think they found themselves playing in systems that didn't suit them. Yeah, and I think we're just starting a new system which should suit them. There's no way they would have bought a striker that wouldn't fit a Lopetegui system, to my mind. There's another thing as well. So that's the first point, squad and everything else. We've done that to death. Let's move on to point 2, Chris, which is this accusation. I keep saying Lop is just the same as Moyes. The football ain't changed. What really rammed this home to me was during that session the other night. I won't give you the name of the footballer because to me is one of my heroes, and I was very disappointed to hear him speaking like this. He said, "I've been to a couple of games. Nothing's changed. It's the same football that Moyes played." He said, "I've been to 2 games. What He said, "I want to know from David Sullivan why the bloody hell he's taken on Lopetegui because the football's the same. Nothing's changed." So clearly, David Moyes diehard. And David Moyes was good at that, by the way, inviting ex-pros down to the training ground, welcoming him with open arms and making them feel at home and part of the place. And now he's got quite a lot of advocates, I think, if I'm being diplomatic. And I don't blame, I'm never going to blame that particular player for having an opinion because he knows more about football than I do, right? He took part in that day that made my childhood really special. So I ain't going to slag him off. Anyway, leading on from that, there's these sub-arguments, and they say, what is it with the Czech boys and managers? Has he been ordered to play them or what? Well, I think he's put that one to bed now. He don't have to play the Czech boys. He dropped them both in the last game. He doesn't play any of Tim's players because people are making this thing of saying, Tim signed these players, Loppy signed these players. I mean, to be clear, Tim is called the Pearl Diver for a reason because he goes and finds pearls. I think probably Guilherme is one of them pearls. I think probably Somerville is one of those pearls. I think there's all sorts of things. And you can say, oh, but they're Tim signings and he's not playing them. I don't think it works like that. I think Tim signed all of these players, right? All of these players. He's the one that's done the negotiation and got some very unlikely deals over the line. I don't think this is Lopetegui going, these are my players. I'm not playing your players. At least I bloody hope not. I can't say.
You could argue some of them, Gal, right? I mean, I don't think all of them are. I mean, Kilman clearly has got to be a Lopetegui signing because, he worked with the guy when he was at Wolves. So I would assume that would have been a Lopetegui signing, not a Steidten signing.
Oh, absolutely. You can certainly say that there are certain signings that Lopetegui asked for. And I think he got all of the players that he wanted. But I think beyond that, the deal is, right, we'll get you the players you really need, but then we'll have some fun, right? We'll bring in some.
Well, that was the remit, right? That was the remit when
Yeah.
obviously they brought Lopetegui and they told him this is how it's going to work, which he's happy to work on that basis. So I'd agree with you. I think Stuyton has been responsible for the vast majority of those signings, but I still believe that Lopetegui has also been instrumental in picking certain players that he really wanted to bring in. You know, Kilman clearly being one of them.
Yeah. By the way, I've just been told, look at the stats. Sorry, there's a lot of adverts in the live stream. That shouldn't have happened. That's my fault. You usually only get ads on these after the live stream. So sorry for that. I know what I did. I'll make sure it don't happen next time. So apologies for all the painful adverts watching on a live stream. It will never happen again, I promise you. Right. Bear with me. Right. So yeah, look, so what do you think? Do you think that's true or not? He doesn't play any of Tim's players. Go on. Park your bus.
Do I think that?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think he makes his own decisions, ultimately. I think he makes his own decisions based on who he feels is going to be the best players for certain games. I do. And I also think he's at that point where he's still trying to assess who he should really keep in that team and that squad in general. So at the start of the season, and I already said this a couple of times, I at the time I was very frustrated that he was sticking with the old guard. I'm not going to lie. But I'm kind of glad that he did, because it shows to me that he's an individual that will give players a chance to prove their worth. And I think he's certainly done that with Souček. He's done that with Ward-Prowse. He's done that with Soufal. And I think he's working out what he can work with, you know, moving forward. So, no, I don't. I really, really don't. I know everyone's like, oh, why is Souček always playing?
Yeah.
But you know what? He does a certain job that needs to be done. Sometimes he does play shit. Let's be honest, he does.
Oh, yeah.
But he's a box crasher, you know, and I love that terminology that you use, because he is. That's exactly what he is. And if you're going to use him, you need to use him in a certain way if he's going to be effective in certain games. But no, I don't think he's only, you know, I don't think that at all. I think he's a man of, you know, makes his own decisions. I truly believe that.
I think there's one thing that gives you a clue that he's not like that, and that is, you know, his only job in this football club is to look after a squad of players. And he does not operate this two-tier system that his predecessor did, where he will have a little group of core favourites and none of the others will get involved. He looks after the health and well-being of all of those players. You know, that is not what his predecessor did. His predecessor, if he didn't like a player, they were frozen out. Even people who had been, like, to me, cult heroes, like Pablo Fornals, who I always love, right? He got frozen out. He was outside the tent. And for me, that was unforgivable. Now, Lopetegui does not do that. Lopetegui looks after those players. You only have to look at training to realise the whole squad are involved. And you see those training sessions quite a lot. The whole squad are involved in the chatting, in the banter, in this and in that. It ain't little groups of players. I remember once, I don't know who it was that joined us. I think it might have been Scamacca. And Mickey was in a little clique of players, like the first team regulars. And Scamacca kind of sheepishly came onto, could have been another player, by the way, but sheepishly came onto the training ground. And Mickey just shouted out his value, how much he cost, for £40 million or something, right? And it's just like, you know, I'll welcome aboard, mate. It was like really hostile. It was quite passive aggressive what he did there, making out he's having a laugh, but he was putting pressure on the guy already as soon as he set foot in the door.
Was that not on Paqueta when he did when he done a trick and he said?
It might have been. It might have been when Paqueta came in. I don't know. I can't remember. But I don't know. I'm getting old. Chris. These things, they all blend together in my mind. But I don't like to see stuff like that. I don't like to see, and I think that's you know, like we mentioned last week about Aguerd, there was a bit of a clique going on with Aguerd leading and Zuma and whatever. That's been flushed out because he was seen as a problem. Now he's gone. That problem's gone. Fucking hung on as well, right to the end, didn't he? Because he didn't want to go. So yeah, brings on 5 subs, as Jones says here as well. Brings on 5 subs every game. So Fortune's always hiding. Hello, Ryan. Thank you for that. Waking up at 1 a.m. is a lot easier to stomach. We make subs, we attack. He changes personnel formation. Yes, he does, like Jones says. Nothing like Moyes so far. Honestly, it's nothing like Moyes. Even when we're defending, it's nothing like Moyes. Even in the first game where we were crap against Villa, at one point, we had 2 defenders back. The rest of the players were past the halfway line. Moyes has never done that in his life, right? It is not like Moyes. It might
You
be,
see it differently on telly, right? I mean, I'm not saying that everyone's saying this, that he's watching it on TV, but when you see the whole pitch and you see the way these players, the positions these players are in, you can clearly see the shape of our team is very different. The task and the objectives of these players getting forward. The back line is so far forward now. It's almost kind of quite scary at times. We're going to get hit on the counter attack, which we have done on a few occasions. But that's not Moyes. That is not Moyes at all.
The only thing I can think of is that sometimes when we're in that kind of holding pattern where we're passing the ball about a bit, that it's a bit sideways and the tempo's a bit lower, and they kind of equate that to Moyes. But Moyes weren't like that. Moyes was sit back against the likes of City. We would have sat back for 90 minutes and invited them on, right? With the odd counter attack if we got lucky. You know how that went. We went to Leverkusen last year, didn't we? And tried to defend for 90 minutes, but couldn't stick it. And we tried that over and over again. And once in a blue moon, it come off like away to Arsenal, where they battered us, but we ended up beating them. And at Tottenham, right?
Yeah.
And Tottenham could have been 5-0 up in first half, couldn't they? You went to that game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember messaging you at half time and saying, crikey, we're going to get smashed here.
Yeah.
But it was a shithouse win, let's be honest. But don't worry. I mean, I love that. Love that. Yeah. It's brilliant.
And we've brought in, like Robin says there, we've brought in some real quality here. I mean, who can argue with Kilman, with Wan-Bissaka, with Rodriguez, and who would bet against some of these other players like Soler? Looks like he's going to be massive for the Lopstyle. Yes. Now here's the link, man, between the double pivot in midfield, the Edison, Alvarez, and the Guido potentially, and Paqueta, or he could even be the Paqueta. He used to be a winger. He's not massively fast, but he's very, very skillful, and he's very used to playing that role of transitional. Transition into the attack. That is what he was brilliant at for Valencia, where he was, Spanish international and everything else. He still is a Spanish international. But what happened was he went to PSG, and PSG used him all over the pitch. This guy can also play in every single position. He's played left back, right back. He does a good job he do a good job in goal, this guy. But his primary position is that transitional midfielder who sets up attacks, basically, who plays in the players that can do the damage. And he looks, that is his core competency. That is the part of his game where he is really special. And if Lopetegui uses his core competency in the right position, to get the most out of it, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. This is a top draw player, another one. Hopefully.
Yeah. No, I mean, I know that you think, I know we spoke about this earlier, and I think you believe that he probably hit the ground running faster than maybe some other players, and hopefully he does. They did. I think patience is needed with some of these boys, but he does look like someone for me that has got some real quality. It's
only reason. The reason I say that, I explained to you the other day, right? The reason I say that is because with strikers, they don't get many touches, and so every touch that they get, they're judged on. So if you bump it up to full crude and he don't win it or take it down, or he doesn't get a shot where it goal, everyone goes, and then people say it's crap, right? He's finished, he's rubbish. Midfielders, they can make a mistake, misplace a pass. 2 seconds later, they get another go because they're seeing the ball every 2 seconds, right? And I think that's what we saw with Rodriguez from game 1 to game 2, right? He just got used to the pace of the game in the Premier League really, really quickly. And I don't think a top quality player is going to have a problem acclimatizing in midfield to the Premier League. I think you will have that problems occasionally with strikers, but not in midfield.
You're right though, because this is the
Thank
thing.
you, Mark. Cheers. Yeah.
I think what you tend to find with strikers is, they could just have one misplaced pass, or maybe they take a shot and goal and it goes a couple of yards wide of the post, and suddenly everyone's on their back, right? Saying, "Oh, they're shit. They can't play them." Blah blah blah. But with midfielders, they can basically, get it right after a couple of bad passes, and suddenly they're having a great game. But strikers, they don't forget that. If you miss one chance, you're crap, which is totally wrong, really. I mean, I know that it's frustrating. But midfielders get away a bit more. So I do agree with you in that respect. And I think partially this is why Fulkrug's had a bit of some negative comments about him, because I would say he's missed a couple of chances, but he's had a couple and he hasn't put them in the back of the net for whatever reason.
He's not fashionable, Chris. He's called Nicholas Fulkrug. He looks like an ordinary bloke. He's not a glamorous slam him in from 30 yards out, merchant who's going to, who's 6.5 foot tall and he's going to beat everyone in the air. He's just a good quality, very high standard goal scorer who's playing for a top European team. I think he got to the Champions League final last year. Didn't he score the one in the semi-final, or was it? Or did they get beat? But this guy's done it. This guy's done it at a way higher level than us recently, like a couple of months ago. And people are writing him off already. I just don't get it. But anyway, look, each their own. You can think that if you want. I ain't going to tell you otherwise. But anyway, the whole idea tonight. Do you want to go through a few comments before we wrap up?
Yeah.
Got
here. A lot of people pick formations and players depending on the opposition we are playing, and not afraid of dropping anyone. Loppy and Stein get on. Don't forget Loppy not afraid to walk away, which is true. He's not.
One thing before we close the poll, I ain't going to close it because I can't. But if you want to go and vote now, and you haven't voted already, go to the YouTube page for the Bobby Moore Stand. If you don't know how to find it, go to www.thebobbymorestand.com. That'll take you to the YouTube homepage. Hit the community tab, and you'll see this poll. Right? Tell me after what we've discussed tonight where you are now. Did I convince you maybe things are a bit better, or you're still where you are? You know, or I might have convinced you the reverse. I might have turned you. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? But
Germany just finished their game 5-0. Füllkrug scores. He just needs a service. As simple as that. I agree. You know, he definitely does.
On that point down there, William said, "Is Nigel going to be on the show at some point?" I'm working on something with Nigel and someone else at the moment, who shall remain nameless. But yeah, that's going to be pretty special. Actually, that's not going to be a one-off. It's going to be a series. So bear with us on that one. It's going to take some creating, but that's one I'm really excited about. Actually, I think that's going to be brilliant.
Yeah, I will be. Comment here from Mark. Moyes went in like a ball in a china shop at United. His way, period. I like J-Lo taking it a bit slower, giving the old guy a chance of making changes bit by bit. Yeah. It's exactly what I was saying earlier on. And I think, you know, over time it will hopefully come good. And just to kind of state one thing here, right? We're not saying that guaranteed that Füllkrug is going to be we don't know that yet, but we know we're sure there's a player in there, right? And
he might never acclimatise, Chris. He might just be a dud, right? But it's too early to say that he's a dud, right? That's all I'm saying.
Do you know, we've seen so many players, if you look over historically in the Premier League, certain players have had amazing seasons and suddenly they flopped. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be the case with Duran or anyone else. I'm not. But it happens. And sometimes people get so overexcited about certain players. I mean, let's not forget, I think I spoke to you about the other day, and we were having a contest to find out how many more we could think of. But for people that remember, Michael Ricketts, who was at Bolton, and he had one storming season in the Premier League, and I think he even got an England hat. And everyone's like, this guy's amazing. And then he goes to Borough, flops, and then he just drops down the lower leagues. So the point being is that you can't always judge a player based on one good season. It takes time. It does take time. But what you do know with Füllkrug is he's got better as he's got older. Okay. Yeah. And he's been doing it at the highest level in the Champions League. Okay. So I think with that, there's an element of the guarantee that you're bringing in a good character with ability that we hope can have an impact. But sometimes with the younger players that might have had a good impact in the Premier League, there's no guarantee they can do that elsewhere. There's no guarantee that Duran could be amazing for West Ham. I'm sorry, I don't agree. No guarantee.
Can I say most of his goals, of his 7 goals, have been scored from the bench? So is he just David Fairclough? For those of you that are old enough to remember David Fairclough, super sub, he used to come on for Liverpool every week and score a goal. Ginger bloke.
This is before I've heard the name, Gal, so I'm going to have to take your word for it. I've heard
Sorry, Chris, you're making me feel old. Nice, isn't it? Yeah. Well, but no, I didn't expect you to know him. But David Fairclough was famous. He was actually, you used to call him super sub. He literally scored. That was when Liverpool were brilliant. You used to bring him on. He used to score pretty much every game, right? You know, that is really what he's done. Because you've got to say that starting a game is very different to coming on when the defence is tired and you're a youngster with all the energy and everything else. Because he gets booked a lot as well, Duran. So he clearly gets on and comes on as a sub and puts himself about, right? He genuinely does. Leo D says Wan-Bissaka is the best player so far. Yeah, honestly, I think when you consider age, 26, he's in his prime. Had a bloody hell. That's almost criminal that we got him for 15 million.
He's not even in his prime yet, though, Gal. That's the thing.
I know. It's
like 28,
ridiculous.
29. Yeah, amazing bit of business that was. It really was.
Yeah, I think. Gary Brook, I also feel, Füllkrug is too old. What, 31, 30? No, he's not too old.
How old's Antonio?
I mean, look, Antonio's 34, and I think he only became too old, really. And he relies on pace, right? You remember Sheringham? He had no pace at all, but he's very technical, Sheringham. So it could look like he was doing nothing, and suddenly, because he's got a brain, he would find space and he'd put the ball away. That'll be Füllkrug. That'll be Füllkrug. He never had to rely on pace. He hasn't got slower. He's never been faster, right? Yeah. But he's very strong and very dirty and very wily and very technical, right?
I'll tell you what, he'll give defenders a problem. I've seen enough of him to know that aerially he will, And I think his hold-up play is very good. Bearing in mind who we've played against so far and who he's played against so far, can't judge him. Wait until he comes up against some of the mid-table to lesser teams. I think he's going to be a problem for them. And when he starts getting a couple of goals, people will be on him, really, really pleased with him.
And fucking hell, George, when you say he's too old at 31, how do you think that makes me feel? I mean, come on, have a heart, George. Have a heart. Right. Life at West Ham is on the up. Mark says we have a great squad. 3 points at Fulham. Yes, I'll be there. Don't know if I've mentioned it. Stand on me for that one. Loppy era is going to. You're going to go there because you said you might have a ticket.
I don't know. I mean, I want to go. I just feel awfully bad if I don't go with my boy. That's the thing. It's a father-son thing for me. I know it's one of them things. I'm not sure. Don't know yet.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But anyway, look, the results of the poll are as follows. So, 230 votes. Those who are angry and always angry are 3%, 0% for totally dissatisfied, 5% for not happy. So 8% in the not happy, dissatisfied, angry camp. Now the positive ones. So we've got 21% at the top who are happy, think it's doing well. Again, it's only today, right? It might turn bad next week. And then 70%, 70%. Say he's met the minimum requirement expected and they're satisfied. So I think 91% are satisfied or happy, and I think that's a really good result. It's a vote of confidence, I think, and it shouldn't be anything less than that after 4 games. Let's be honest, whereas 1-2. So I think it's the right result. I know it's a bit emotive, a bit kind of mischievous of me to put that in there, but I just wanted to flesh some of these things out because I've been watching various shows on various days, and I thought, why are we talking about that? So yeah,
a bit sport sometimes, Gal. That's the thing. We get a little bit of sport. Let's not forget, a month and a half ago, whenever it was, when we just had Guillaume and we were all crapping ourselves, thinking, well, you know what's going to happen here? And we were all worried about what that window is going to look like. But crikey, I mean, it did turn around. It really turned around. So I'm delighted, and I'm sure, as based on the poll results, the vast majority and the overall consensus is we're doing really well. We're doing really well in the window. We've done well in the window. So now we just need to focus on what we've got and hopefully have a great season, and just get behind the boys. That's it.
So again, sorry to all of you who have been watching. Thanks for all joining, by the way, and joining in the chat and everything else. I've quite enjoyed the show, but I hope you have as well. And I hope the adverts have not ruined it too much because that was my screw up. Won't happen again. Right. Sorry. Thank you for our new moderators who have been in action for the first time tonight. So you've got... what are their names again? We've got Bodger the Bastard. That was his official moderator name. And we had what was Claire? Come on, Claire. What was your name again? Bloody hell. I've done it wrong, haven't I? I'm gonna offend Claire.
Where are you, Claire?
Where are you, Claire? Claire, what did I call you? I'm crap. This is supposed to roll off the tongue, right? It's supposed to roll off the tongue. Ruthless Claire. And Bodger the Bastard. They are the two moderators. Yes. I knew it began with R, but I couldn't remember the word, Claire. I'm rubbish. All right. So all good. So I think that's what we got. If you haven't subscribed, again, just drive you mad. Please go and subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. And also, if you like audio podcasts, go and subscribe to the audio podcast for free. It's just an audio version of these video podcasts that are put up. It's not specially made to be an audio podcast, right? But if you prefer to listen that way, it's probably better because it gets all enhanced and stuff by the software. So it's probably better for your car or wherever you listen to this stuff. All right. So thank you, Chris.
Just before I go, I just wanted to do a shout out to someone I met at the ground last week. I felt really bad about this. I think his name was Ben and Oscar. Really nice to meet you. Shout out to both you and your boy. Hopefully you had a good time at the City game. I know we didn't get the result we wanted, but obviously it was a good performance by the boys. So nice to meet you.
Yeah, and that is us done. So I think next week we've got a game next week. We'll do various, normal leading up to it. It's going to be a logistical challenge next week to do no, it ain't because it's only Fulham, isn't it? It's the other side of London. It's going to become a problem when it's like Liverpool and things like that. Getting people.
Talk about that game yet, Gal.
No, not that game. I mean the league game. The league game. I don't care about the cup game, but I can't go to the cup game anyway, right? But the league games up north and everything else, trying to get someone that's at the game get them on screen if I'm at home, or if I'm going to the game, or if you're going to the game, right? We've got to figure these logistics out because we've got to make it work, right?
Yeah.
Might end up having someone on audio only or something, but whatever, as long as we can do it, that's fine, right?
Yeah.
All right, so thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining. Thank you for all your comments. Thanks, Claire and Bodger, and you're very ruthless, Claire. Thank you, and we shall see you soon.
Cheers, guys.